Recall campaigns heat up as civic groups in northern Taiwan set up a joint office. The Mainland Affairs Council calls out a Taipei teacher for being critical of President Lai Ching-te on Chinese state TV. New tariffs from US President Donald Trump send Asian markets reeling. Plus, how illegal fishing at one special location could have a devastating impact on the planet. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Reece. We begin today in Southeast Asia, where at least 20 people are dead after a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck Myanmar. It's still uncertain how much damage it's caused inside the country, which is locked in a civil war. But the United States Geological Survey says casualties could be as high as 10,000. Powerful tremors were also felt in neighboring countries like Thailand and China. In Bangkok, dramatic footage shows a building collapsing. At least 43 workers were reportedly inside the under-construction 30-story tower when the quake hit. At least one of them is dead. Both Thailand and Myanmar's junta have declared a state of emergency. This is a developing story, and we'll be back with more later. Here in Taiwan, debate is brewing. What's more important, national security or freedom of expression? It's a question being raised after a teacher was investigated for criticizing Taiwan's president on Chinese state television. Appearing on Chinese state broadcaster CCTV, Oh Gui-zhi, a teacher at one of Taiwan's top high schools whose mother lives in China, criticizes her country's president.
我的母亲跟我变成敌对，我觉得我怎么面对祖先？赖清德要不要去面对他的祖先？我真是想问，那良心何在？
In the interview, supposedly about education and culture, Oh questioned President Lai's characterization of China as a hostile foreign force, saying it vilified the Chinese relatives of Taiwanese people. But her comments prompted backlash online, and even an investigation by the Education Ministry, bringing into question her suitability as an educator.
经北一女校方查证回复，并没有学生反映老师在课堂上违反教育中立。
Despite the school's investigation turning up no wrongdoings, Oh continues to face criticism, including from Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, which handles relations with China, with its minister criticizing her for singing Chinese state media's tune against Taiwan.
党媒都很期待你讲的这个话跟采访的内容是他们想要的立场、论调以及声音，向来如此哈。受到中共政权啊。 的各种极限施压、步步进逼，这不是事实吗
Oh herself has come out to blast the campaign against her.
这个我觉得到底有什么抵触？我从来没有在，比方说竞选期间替某政党在拉票。
And has found support among opposition Kuomintang politicians, including Taipei Mayor Zhang Wan-an.
欧老师并没有违反教育中立，那我们的立场就是尊重老师教学的专业自主权，同时也坚定地捍卫言论。
The case is the latest that opposition lawmakers are citing as an attack by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party on free speech, after 3 influencers from China had their Taiwan residency permits revoked for online videos seen as promoting unification by force, stimulating debates about the compatibility of national security and total freedom of expression. Joseph Wu and Reece for TaiwanPlus. Lawmaker recall efforts are intensifying across Taiwan, including in New Taipei City, where several civic groups have opened a new joint office to coordinate their campaigns. As Chris Gorin reports, that's as recall drives on every political side are making their way through the process.
Civic groups are stepping up efforts to recall opposition party lawmakers here in northern Taiwan, where they've just set up a new joint office to consolidate several campaigns targeting legislators in the greater Taipei area.
那今天这个场子非来不可，是因为在当初各个罢免团队非常缺乏包含实际的一些实质上的帮助。最后我要讲的是，罢免不是桃园的事，罢免不是新北的事，罢免不是台北的事， 罢免是全台湾人的事。
The office's opening event saw speeches and updates from the various campaigns. So far, recall petitions against 35 opposition lawmakers have passed the first stage. Campaigners are now gearing up efforts to collect enough signatures to get the petitions past the second stage. Meanwhile, 8 recall petitions against ruling Democratic progressive lawmakers have just passed the first stage, with a few others still being reviewed by the Central Election Commission. As the petition signing efforts heat up, we're sure to see more activity on city streets and perhaps eventually in the voting booth. Luffy Lee and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Chinese students in Taiwan could soon be barred from studying topics sensitive to Taiwan's national security or competitiveness. The Education Ministry is planning a meeting to determine which topics should count as sensitive. Some professors worry the plan could dampen academic exchanges.
交换生的部目前还有，政府不希望学校去做太多的交流，尤其对一部分的关键技术是会关心的话，那学校当然会在交流上面的话会放慢脚步。
Taiwan hasn't had any full-time undergraduate students from China since 2023, and there are few Chinese graduate students. Taiwan's defense ministry says it spotted 30 Chinese military aircraft and 8 naval vessels operating around the country in the 24 hours up to Friday morning. 20 of those aircraft entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area is not Taiwan's airspace, but acts as a buffer zone for defensive purposes. The defense ministry says one unmanned drone circled the island, while an official ship was also spotted near Taiwan. Chinese President Xi Jinping says he wants to have a good and respectful relationship with the US.
我们始终认为，中美关系保持稳定、健康、可持续发展，符合两国人民根本利益。
Xi was speaking at a meeting with 40 foreign investors aimed at giving China's ailing economy a boost. Beijing has struggled to attract overseas investors amid tightening regulations and abrupt crackdowns on foreign firms. But he tried to reassure the executives of the country's economic strength, saying he wants, quote, peaceful coexistence with the US. US allies in Asia are scrambling to respond to US President Donald Trump's new 25% tariff on foreign cars, with some even resorting to emergency measures. Joyce Tseng has more.
Stock markets in Tokyo tumble after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a levy of up to 25% on all foreign cars and related parts going to the U.S.
やっぱり心配ですね。関税が高くなればそれだけ物が高くなるからインフレになっていくんじゃないかな。両方で。
なんかちょっと日本とアメリカのその中っていうかそういうのもやっぱ変わってきちゃうんじゃないかなっていう不安ですね。
Trump says the tariffs will help revive car production in the U.S. and restore what was taken by, quote, friend and foe.
And frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
Japan, one of the U.S.'s closest allies in Asia, ranks in the top 3 sellers of cars to the United States. Its Prime Minister Ishiba Shiguru carefully weighing a response.
この発表を受けて、私どもとして適切な対応を考えていかねばなりません。あらゆる選択肢というものは当然検討の対象となるものでございます。
Meanwhile, U.S. ally South Korea, also a top 3 car maker for the U.S., vows emergency measures by next month.
글로벌 불확실성이 커지는 상황이지만 우리 기업이 혼자 싸우는 일은 없을 것입니다.
Auto industry experts have warned that Trump's tariffs will hurt American customers the most, as the tax will likely be tagged onto the price of foreign cars. In the state of Georgia, one auto parts seller says he's not too worried, even though 90% of his goods are imported from Taiwan.
All this stuff on this aisle right here, left and right, it all came from Taiwan.
Ernie Simmons says he sees Trump's tariffs as a way to even the playing field for the benefit of American businesses.
I also believe that these countries will come to the realization that they're not going to get a free ride anymore. And they're going to have to treat us when we export something to them the same way that we treat them when they import to us.
Despite being a major exporter of auto parts, Taiwanese cars mostly cater to domestic buyers, so officials here don't expect to be affected by the latest U.S. tariffs. But Trump has also threatened to tax other sectors like chips, Taiwan's most valuable industry, and Taipei is still bracing for impact.
我们都有各种情境的模拟。根据这些模拟，找出我们跟产业大家来讨论，那么找出一个比较妥适的因应措施，这样。
Next week, Trump is set to reveal a long-promised reciprocal tariff plan targeting countries that run large trade surpluses with the U.S. Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea are among the top countries that fit that bill. All three friends to the U.S., now watching closely for what its president will do. Chris Ma and Joyson for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, sustainability is in style at Taipei Fashion Week.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
My name is Stephen Rong, and my title name is Bashel Shu Li, and I've come to Taiwan to work as a performance artist. Join me on this journey as I discover my indigenous voice through culture and music.
Songs of Our Ancestors. Every Thursday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more news from Taiwan and around the world, download our app or check out the TaiwanPlus website. Ready? Go.
Ready.
Just jump.
Okay, jump!
Is there a place you've been searching for?
We bring you stories, not just to Taiwan.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
This is a journey that will move you. Our stories are all connected. TaiwanPlus.
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Vladimir Putin has suggested putting Ukraine under a temporary administration to facilitate agreements aimed at ending Russia's war in the country.
В принципе, конечно, можно было бы под эгидой ООН, с Соединенными Штатами, даже с европейскими странами, разумеется, с нашими партнерами и друзьями, обсудить возможности введения на Украине временного управления.
Putin has criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's administration as illegitimate, saying it remained in power past the end of its term in 2024. Zelensky has responded by saying Ukraine is barred from holding elections while under martial law. The US is working toward a ceasefire by holding separate talks with Moscow and Kyiv. Zelensky says he wants to cooperate with the US, but is calling for a stronger stance against Russia. He also expressed frustration over shifting conditions in the negotiations.
Тому що постійно змінюються умови. І мені здається, начебто ми вже домовили, що буде рамкова угода, а потім повна угода. А зараз, я так розумію, команди україно-американські працюють над цим, тому що Америка зараз...
Russia has previously rejected a US proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. The US and the Philippines have agreed to strengthen security ties. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth met with his Philippine counterpart, Gilberto Teodoro Jr., in Manila. In a joint statement, the two countries say they've agreed to carry out special forces training on the northernmost Batanes Islands. The islands are less than 400 kilometers from Taiwan, and the US and Philippines will hold their annual Balakatan exercises there next month. Hegseth says the two sides will also improve maritime security in the region. Japan has unveiled its first ever evacuation plan for Okinawa's remote islands in case of a Taiwan crisis. The plan aims to evacuate 120,000 residents from the islands closer to Taiwan within 6 days to safer locations in Kyushu and Yamaguchi. The plan would transport about 20,000 people a day using civilian ferries, Japan's Coast Guard, and civilian flights. A more comprehensive plan in the case of a longer evacuation will be finalized in 2026. For more on why Japan is stepping up its plans for a Taiwan emergency, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Japanese security analyst Reina Sasaki, based in Washington, D.C.
I want to first start off with these evacuation plans. How concerned are people in Okinawa about the possibility of a war around Taiwan?
So actually, I visited Okinawa last summer and conducted a series of interviews with local officials, including the mayor of Ishigaki, Yonaguni, and Taketomi, and member of city council and the commander of local Japan Self-Defense Force garrison. So hearing directly from people on the ground really changed how I think about a Taiwan contingency. So I think it's not just a geopolitical issue, it's something that local residents are already living with a real present concern. And then, of course, it's a major concern, especially in Japan's southernmost islands like Ishigaki and Yonaguni, especially Yonaguni. It is just 110 kilometers from Taiwan. For them, Taiwan contingency isn't an abstract concept. It's something that could affect their lives directly.
Is it Okinawa specifically that's concerned? And if so, what is it about that area that is raising anxiety?
Yeah, very much so, especially in Okinawa remote islands. People are paying attention. For example, taxi drivers are talking about PAC-3 missile launches, which is located because of the North Korean missile ones. So I think what's unique is the blend of strategic awareness and limited vulnerability. These islands are exposed not just to military threat, but also, economic shocks and natural disasters. And also they saw some light or like the U.S. aircraft, roaming around the nearby their islands, and then they saw the like military equipment, and then they feel like this is kind of a near crisis or near some danger nearby. Also in local elementary school there are even Taiwanese language classes in Yonaguni, so you can really feel still everyday life that Taiwan is considered the closest and most cherished friend of their community.
That was security analyst Reina Sasaki. Taiwan and 8 other countries have agreed to cut this year's catch quota for Pacific sawry. Countries including China, Japan, and Russia are reducing their catches by 10% amid a shortage in the North Pacific. The decision to conserve the popular fish, which is an autumn delicacy in Japan, was made at the annual gathering for the Commission managing fisheries in the area. Over the years, overfishing and global warming have put more pressure on the species. As oceanic fish stocks around the world continue to collapse, fishing fleets are setting out for remote waters to feed a global appetite for seafood. But their practices could have dire consequences for the planet's climate. A new report from non-profit Outlaw Ocean Project uncovers the damage being done to a unique remote ecosystem. Jonathan Kaplan has the story.
You've probably never heard of the Saya de Mala Bank, but this shallow seagrass plateau in the Indian Ocean teems with life. It's a breeding ground for blue and humpback whales, sea turtles, and other threatened species. It is also the ocean's greatest carbon sink, and it is being destroyed. The bank lies off the northeast end of Madagascar in mostly international waters. It is about the size of Switzerland, administered by the small island nation of Mauritius, about 900 kilometers away. This means fishing fleets can operate there with near impunity. But one nonprofit organization is working to document the destruction of this marine ecosystem.
We know that there is an unusual concentration of industrial fishing vessels there, and a huge portion of those vessels are trawlers that are distinctly destructive to the specific thing, seagrass, that makes the Saya de Mala most precious.
That seagrass is precious not only for the habitat it provides for the many species that dwell on the underwater meadow.
It's a big, very important place, largely because of seagrass's carbon capture potential. What seagrass does is pulls carbon out of the water that ended up in the water because the water pulled it out of the air, and then it holds it and it stores it in its roots.
The Saya de Mala Bank is the world's largest known seagrass field. These uniquely adapted plants cover less than 0.2% of the seafloor, but store around 18% of the ocean's carbon.
This is really a silver bullet for climate change. Seagrass does it faster than anything on land, to the tune of 20 to 30 times faster than, say, trees in the Amazon.
In search of fish to feed a hungry human world, fleets of fishing vessels have descended on the area in recent years.
I think what makes it attractive is the biodiversity. You know, it's rich. It's not, much of the world's nearshore stocks have collapsed. Too much fishing, too many fishing boats, and not enough fish close to land. So ships are going further to more exotic places to try to find the best catch. And this is a pretty remote place that hadn't been tapped before a decade ago. But for the last decade, every year, you've been seeing a huge buildup of vessels there.
The unregulated fishing practices around the Saya de Mala Bank are ravaging this rare ecosystem and speeding up climate change. Fleets from Sri Lanka and Thailand have been operating there for years, and so have those from Taiwan.
And the Saya de Mala is a place where there's a huge flow of tuna in that area, but because it's so far historically, other fleets haven't gone there, but the Taiwanese are now.
There are many parties to this destructive process that puts short-term profit above long-term global health. Alex Chen and Jonathan Kaplan for TaiwanPlus.
In the next part of our coverage of the Saya de Mala Bank, we'll take a closer look at the fishing practices that are wrecking that part of the underwater world and Taiwan's role in its destruction. Stay tuned for that. Taiwan's biggest fashion event has begun, with this season's latest looks taking on a big issue: sustainability. Our reporter Sandy Chi was at the opening night.
It's a big night for Taiwan's fashion enthusiasts. Taipei Fashion Week Autumn-Winter 2025 has officially kicked off, giving Taiwan's designers the opportunity to show what they've got. With 6 designers unveiling their latest creations, all united by a single mission: to go from zero back to zero.
最关键就是要表达台湾希望以时尚来分担这个世界公民的责任，就是说 endless 就是时尚无尽的意思，就是说我们希望时尚也是一个循环，时尚不会只有造成地球的负担，而是每一个在这个过程消费时尚的人也参与了分担地球的责任。
So-called fast fashion has taken over the global market in recent years, thanks to cheaper clothing production. But with this rise comes serious challenges affecting all countries. In Taiwan, more than 80,000 tons of old clothes are thrown away every year, and of that, about 34,000 tons end up in incinerators. If stacked up, that's nearly the height of Mount Everest.
其实我这淘汰率，我自己觉得我自己淘汰率是蛮高的。我也不知道下一次的淘汰是什么时候，可能就是2个礼拜、1个月，不一定。
And so the average wardrobe life of my clothes, I would say maybe like 3 to 7 years. Yeah, I try to mix and match, right? And sometimes, and I think I'm very careful with what I add into my collection, so I don't throw them away easily.
And to change that, this season's designs are all made using recycled material.
这次包含引用到就是工业废布，或甚至回收的服装去做成布料，所以它是从一个很有趣，就是已经是成品，然后又变成布料这样的过程。
But some designers say it's difficult to get the public on board with the idea of sustainable fashion.
现在就是回收的材料，其实它成本过高，所以在推行的时候可能还需要有一段的时间。如果说未来要做到量产的话，那以目前来讲的话，就是小批量的话可能问题不是很大，可是有些如果你要普及化的话，我觉得价格可能是一个问题点。
Other designers still have high hopes.
我觉得逐渐，大家也从很久以前的定制的这个习惯，慢慢又从快时尚又转到现在，大家也开始逐渐对一件衣服有一个更多的价值的认知，跟希望用收藏方式去拥有服装。
Endless fashion is continuing in the capital, with more runway shows and fashion forums being held until March 30th. Hang Shu and Tani Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, let's take a sneak peek at the Art Basel taking place in Hong Kong. I'm Reece Ayers. Take care and see you next time.